Hi, friends, and welcome. Today we are here to officially wrap up season 2 of Angel. So, I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts on the season as a whole. We're going to be, just like I did with Buffy, talking a little bit about different character arcs and relationship arcs. And yeah, I'm just excited to talk with you guys about this. I'm actually so anxious about filming this video because I have been like in wrap up land for so long just because like this happened. Oh my god. By the time this comes to YouTube, this is going to be so out of date. But as I'm filming this right now, we're like in the beginning of December, which means that I started season 2 of Angel in January. So it pretty much took me a whole year to finish all of this. And I've been in wrap up land for a little while just because of Thanksgiving and stuff. I was out of town, so I wasn't filming. And so basically, I think it's been pretty much like a month since I actually watched the Angel finale, but I've just been filming the Q&As for Patreon, and then I was filming the Buffy wrap up, which was like a whole thing. But don't worry, this video is not going to be that long. No offense to Angel, I just don't have that much to say as much as I felt like I did for Buffy. But in any which case, this is to say, like, as much as I kind of like doing these videos because I think they're kind of just interesting for me, they help me be able to sit down and like really try and form cohesive thoughts about just thinking back on the season and seeing it as a whole. Because like, of course I talk about my thoughts after each episode, but I do kind of like being able to sit down and think like of the payoffs, like what works, what didn't work, so I kind of like doing these videos for me, but I also kind of hate them because they're so long, so time consuming, and obviously they take me away from reactions. So I haven't filmed like an actual Buffyverse reaction in like a month, so I'm kind of just like really excited to be able to film this video because that means that next week I can actually go back into watching, which is very exciting. Like I gotta get Buffy to like go back to life. So the quicker I get to like watching Buffy, the quicker that's gonna happen, is my assumption. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm excited to be here, a little bit scared because with Buffy season 5, I think also a big reason that I had a lot to say was because I had actually rewatched the entire season. So of course there were some things that I hadn't had a chance to like say yet. Like it was just like fresher in my mind. Whereas Angel, I have only rewatched the first 7 episodes. Yeah, I finished editing Darla, which is 207, last night. Those are the only episodes that I've actually rewatched, and those were while I was editing. So definitely there are a couple of episodes that are not as fresh in my mind. So I'm gonna ask for some forgiveness with that, and I'm going to ask for some forgiveness if this video is a little bit, less edited than usual. There might be a little bit more pauses, just because again, for the sake of time and being able to edit this video, I think we should just start off with like my overall thoughts in the season. And I have to say that I think the season was definitely quite surprising for me. I wouldn't say surprising in the same way as Buffy, because I feel like Buffy was surprising to me in the sense of like I didn't expect it to go that dark and deep tonally. Whereas with Angel, I think just like genuinely where the story was going, the storyline surprised me. Because I feel like with Buffy, I had an idea of what they were trying to do, of like, oh, they're establishing Glory as a big bad. They're establishing that Joyce is sick. I mean, of course, there are things that might not be like as clear when you're watching it for the first time, but I feel like it was there. Whereas with season 2 of Angel, I think I was definitely like, who is the big bad? Is this Starla? Is this Drusilla? Is this the Master? Like, what are we talking about? Is it just Wolfram and Hart? I think I was definitely in a little bit of a search for a big bad, I would say, throughout the season. But I think the season was actually so much more about like character development, because I think it's so interesting how much we got to see Angel like go through this season. The fact that he parts ways from the group and tries to do things on his on his own, just like how poorly kind of that works out for him. But also I actually kind of like this storyline, as hard as it was to see Angel be separated from them. I really liked how this was able to show that Angel Investigations doesn't depend on Angel as much, and seeing how they were actually able to get things running, they were able to keep things going. And I think most importantly, I feel like Angel's kind of the glue. That's a terrible like word choice, but I feel like he is the one that sort of glues them together in the sense of he kind of is the reason that all of them are there. He's the one who brings people in. He's the one who brought Gunn in, you know what I mean? He's the one who's bringing Fred in now. He's usually the one who like will befriend someone and then they'll join Angel Investigations kind of. And so it's cool to see that they're still able to have these friendships and these relationships even when he's not there. It's good to see that it went beyond Angel. They're not there for Angel, now they're there for like being there. So it was nice to see this like new side of Angel Investigations. I feel like it gives me a little bit of like ease because, for example, not to bring Buffy into this again, but considering everything that's happening in Buffy, I think a big concern of mine was I don't think the squad is ready to be without Buffy. The times that we have seen them like go on patrol without her or try and do things without her, like when Joyce was sick, for example, and they were trying not to bother her, their first instinct was always to like call Buffy and ask for help. And of course, I still think that Angel Investigations, I still think that they were having the similar feelings of like, I wish I could just call Angel, but I think they were able to, like, I could see them making it work better than I see our squad, working without Buffy in Buffy, if that makes sense. So, I really like all the character progress that we got to explore this season. I love that Darla was a huge part of it. I think that's really, I would say, maybe what makes the season for me is how much we had of Darla. I think she is an absolutely incredible character, like no other. She's just, she's original, she's fresh, she's, perverted in like the best of ways. Like there's just something about villains in the Buffyverse, and maybe even more specifically in Angel, because I think of like Darla and I think of Drusilla. They're so compelling. Like I love them maybe even more than I love the actual good guys of the story. They're just that good. And so it was really fun to be able to see Darla because it's something that like I was really connecting with her a lot this season. I think that like some of the points that she was bringing up, some of the vulnerabilities I thought were like super interesting. And again, I feel like it just brings this like realism to the show, because something that I was talking about in Buffy season 5 and why I think that it was like my favorite season is that I think that it went beyond just vampires, and I think it went into very real feelings of like grief. And I think that Angel in a similar way went into these very like in a very different take of it, but I think they were talking about similar things with, Darla struggling with the idea that she's now dying, and Angel, I was, like I said, I was rewatching Darla last night, and just his sort of speech to Darla about like how important it is to like be alive, kind of. And that reminds me of the season 1 finale, and how I feel like a big part of it for me was that Angel seemed to have this like realization that he really wants to be a human. And of course, I think he's always known, but there was just something that stood out to me when watching that episode, because it felt like a light bulb just went off in his head, and he was like, I'm going to do everything in my power to sort of like be able to eventually try and reach this. I don't know. I mean, I know that there's no like logical way of how he would be able to do this, but I felt such a strong connection about Angel and wanting to be a human, of course. And I kind of assumed, I was looking back on my notes for my season 1 recap, and I had written something about like, I don't have it here, I don't know why I'm looking down, but it was something about like saying that I thought Angel was going to like get over his feelings of wanting to be a human and understanding that he can be a vampire and like that's okay and he can still make it work. But that's not exactly where season 2 went. I think season 2 was actually so much about Angel embracing being a vampire, embracing those different sides of him, because it almost felt like he was, and for a good part of the season, I would say that I was not 100% sure where his alliances were and exactly what he was feeling, because while it was definitely Angel, some parts of it definitely felt like he was leaning towards part of Angelus. I was just worried, like, where are these lines going to cross? Is he going to go back to Angelus? I think that was a really big question of the season for me. And I kind of like that he didn't go there, but I like that we got to see a darker side of Angel as Angel, because to me this just shows that like, sure, he has a soul, but obviously not everybody who has a soul is going to be like making the right decisions all the time or even being a good person. Some people have souls and they're still bad people, and that's not to say Angel's a bad person, but that is to say that I was definitely worried about the choices that he was going to make, because he felt very unhinged this season. So I liked seeing this different side of Angel. I think it's so hard for me to not talk about Angel as a character right now, and try to save that for the character discussion, just because I feel like this season to me felt like it was all about the characters. Because in season one, I think we did a great job of setting up the format of Angel. We understood what Angel Investigations was about. We understood how the monsters of the week were going to be connected into the story, because it was quite a different way than Buffy. We really understood the format. And of course, we started having some character explorations, but I feel like season two is kind of like our bigger chance to do that, because now the relationships had been established. So it was already about just like strengthening those relationships, seeing what we can put them through, and overall just like trying to deviate a little bit from the norm, like exploring a lot of Wolfram and Hart, which seems to sort of be our overarching big bad. I think that by establishing the characters, they really do a great job of just like establishing the show a lot. I think that it just reminds me also of crossovers. I think we only had like maybe one crossover. I don't know what's like technically considered a crossover. I would say that we sort of, I mean, of course, there's Willow showing up in like the finale and Willow showing up in Disharmony. Wow, actually a lot of Willow. I kind of love that for us. But what I mean to say is I feel like there was only one episode as far as I can remember, and like I said, please, it's been like literally a year since I started watching this season, so I'm sorry if I'm forgetting stuff, but to me, it felt like Darla was the only actual real crossover in between these two seasons, and it wasn't even a crossover that happened in real, like in nowadays time, which was actually 20 years ago, but still, it was like a crossover of the past, their past stories. So we didn't really get to see much of these two stories interlapping in real life. We got to see a little bit more with Angel showing up to Buffy and those kind of things, but we're not going to talk about that because we're not going to talk about that. But I think it's important, because while I do love crossovers, I feel like I could understand why they had a lot more crossovers in the last season, because they wanted to get people to watch Angel, so the crossovers are a great way to do that. I mean, I Will Remember You is like literally the perfect episode. So it makes so much sense to do those, but I think it also makes sense that once the show has been established and already has its own viewers, I understand why they would sort of start letting go of crossovers and having Angel be its own series, because otherwise people are always going to be bringing back to Buffy and those kind of things. So it's like, it's a little bit heartbreaking, because I feel like we've kind of, it's not something that I feel like, oh, it's just this season was not crossover heavy, but we might have more in the future. I feel like this is kind of something that has happened that will probably not be changing. I think that season 4 of Buffy and season 1 of Angel are probably the season with the most crossovers and the most connections, and I feel like the more we get into both of those shows, the less crossovers they're going to have. Of course, I could be wrong, but also I feel like, because you guys know that I've seen later seasons of Angel, I don't really remember crossovers happening, which of course could be because I was not actually watching Buffy, so I wouldn't even know what were crossovers. But in general, I don't have the impression of remembering crossovers. I think the only moment that I remember Buffy being mentioned was actually the episode that we just saw, the season 2 finale. I remember there being something about this. Like I said, I didn't think it was a season 2 finale. I thought this was like much later on in the show. Because I feel like I really had such an impression of like the fact that I knew these characters before I heard that. But I guess it also makes sense that I didn't, because I didn't know who Willow was when I started the show. I wish I understood my mind. And I have to say that watching season 2 has definitely clouded my judgment even more as to like, what do I know? Because when I was watching, like, I really thought that the episodes were going to feel a lot more familiar, but they didn't. Like, they got me with the Lorne thing, and 221, I was genuinely confused. I knew that he couldn't be dead, but I did not know how that was happening. How did they have his head on a platter? And in general, I thought that more things would be like coming back to me, and there are some things that are definitely memory-wise, because I saw the last 4 episodes, I believe. And this is where it all starts. I don't even remember if I saw, I think it was 5, 9, 18. Was it 18? Is that, no. 19 is the one where we see Amy Acker for the first time in the flashback, right? It was really quick, because I think 18 was dead end. Yeah. like I'm not even 100% sure that I have seen that Angel episode. A part of me thinks that yes, because I think I watched all the episodes with Amy, and there was something that felt very familiar about the library setting. But every single other part of that episode, I absolutely did not remember. I only remembered a library. So my memory, clearly very selective, and I'm actually very happy that it's like not bringing back as much as I thought it would, because it's just making it even more enjoyable. The fact that like I'll know some things here and there, and like for example seeing the Gruselug or whatever his name is, that brought back a memory. I was like, oh, I think I remember there being a hot guy, those kind of things. But there are also things that I don't necessarily remember until I see them. So this is to say it's been an interesting experience to watch the later end of season 2. I think the Pylea episodes were so strong. I think they were some of my favorites. I think it's so interesting how they were able to like completely take us away from the Angel that we like know, because of course they have such an established format that I feel like it's so difficult for a show to literally take you, like it almost felt like an Angel movie, you know what I mean? Because those episodes to me feel like one big episode. It doesn't feel like distinct episodes. It just all feels like one big connected story arc. And that kind of like forgets everything else that was happening at that moment, which is why it's interesting that when they come back, they're faced with the harsh reality of, Miss Buffandra and stuff. But again, we're not talking about that. So the Pylea episodes were quite fascinating. And I feel like the thing is, even though they didn't have crossovers with Buffy, or not as many crossovers with Buffy, I think that it was so well thought out. And maybe this is just because of Nico, who did the watch order. God bless you, Nico. I think you did a great job with this, because it felt perfectly balanced in the sense of when I was at my lowest, well, not when I was at my lowest with Buffy, because that actually got so much worse, but when I thought I was at my lowest with Buffy in like 508-ish, when Joyce gets sick, I remember how much I was like struggling to watch those episodes. They were really hard. They were really like just generally depressing. And I remember how much I was enjoying watching Angel at that time, where I was like, I don't want to focus on Joyce being sick right now. I want to focus on Drusilla and Darla like thriving. So I think they did a good job balancing that, where it's like, I would say that the happiest moments of Angel paralleled some of the saddest moments of Buffy, towards the end. Right now, like the last 4 episodes of Buffy literally made me feel like I was literally going insane, whereas the last 4 episodes of Angel were like completely fun and Pylea and like good vibes. So I think, like, I didn't think that Angel was going to be like the happier of both shows, because Angel always, I feel like from the moment it kind of came out with like a kind of horror, not necessarily horror, but like melancholy tone, where I was like, oh, none of these characters are ever going to be happy. They're never going to get to that place. They just like, they feel too sad. And I kind of thought that Angel was like the sad show, but I think that based on what we've seen with the later end of season 5, I'm starting to think that maybe it's actually Buffy, because I would say that Angel definitely, not to say that Buffy didn't make me happy in a couple of episodes of season 5, but I'd say that Angel was definitely more upbeat, which was interesting. But then, like I said, I think that really balanced it out so well. I think if Angel would have been too sad, I don't think that would have worked. I think it could have worked, but I think it would just be a lot. And I feel like having that balance really works out for me. Because it was giving me things that Buffy couldn't give me at that moment, because it was just too busy being sad. And I gotta talk about Darla and Drusilla. I gotta talk about it. I would say that this was one of the confusions I had with this season, I would say. And I love it, don't take me wrong. Any criticism that I give is truly out of love. Please know that. But obviously, because I've seen the later seasons of Angel, I feel like I kind of have an idea of the big bads that are to come. And I don't think Darla and Drusilla are one of them. I don't have that memory. I remember meeting the characters, but I think what I saw of Darla was in real life. I think what I've seen of Drusilla is in flashbacks. I don't think we saw Drusilla in real time. I could be wrong. But this goes to say that because I knew that they were most likely not going to be the big bads of seasons 3 to 5, my one hope for them was that season 2 was going to be their time to shine. because I knew that they weren't going to be able to do it later. So I'm kind of upset that we shied away from it, because I think that the peaks that we reached, in that mid season 2, with both of them being the most iconic characters ever. Those like 2 episodes were genuinely some of the best episodes of TV ever. I think they were thriving. I think it was amazing. I was literally having the time of my life, even though I probably shouldn't, because like, they're supposed to be the big bads, and I guess they're supposed to be like starting shut up. I was genuinely having a blast, and I'm kind of upset that we shied away from it, that that they just like walked away. And I know that they came back at a later point. We got to see Drew and Buffy and stuff like that. So I know that like they're alive and okay. But I was really, really hoping that we were really going to talk about them as being big bads or something through the rest of the season. But I think that what this season showed me is that, I mean, I should have figured this out by season 1, because I don't think season 1 had a real big bad either. I guess like Angel does big bads in a different way. And this goes back to me trying to think about the later seasons of Angel. I feel like I kind of remember big bads. For season 5, okay, I guess this is going to be a spoiler, so please click like a minute ahead if you don't want a spoiler. But I feel like for season 5 there wasn't really a specific big bad. I think it was very much about like Wolfram and Hart. But I'd say that for seasons 4 to 5, I remember Gina Torres. Of course I remember Gina Torres. I love her. And of course I remember our very beloved Connor, who I am literally petrified to meet. But I feel like they were in the same season-ish, right? And that's the parts that's confusing me, is that like, I don't know if I'm just forgetting season 3. I don't know if Connor comes in earlier than expected and maybe he is the season 3. I feel like that would be too soon. Because I feel like more or less when Gina came in, isn't that sort of when Cordy leaves? Because I know Cordy leaves for a while, right? And I feel like that was near the end. I feel like that was close to season 5. So that's why I'm kind of confused. I feel like both of their storylines, weren't they intertwined? God. And I'm trying not to think about it too deeply, because I feel like actually the more that I think about it, the more I might actually come up with the answers. And a part of me just doesn't want to. So that goes to say, I think I was looking for a big bad, because I feel like the later seasons, like seasons 3 to 5, have a little bit more formed big bads, but I think this season just sort of didn't. And I think I feel like I would actually have enjoyed it more if I didn't come in with these expectations, but that's again fully on me. I feel like a lot of the times that I have criticism for either Buffy and Angel is just because I'm making up stuff in my head, so I know that I'm fully to blame for this. Something else that I loved was the setting, like the new setting of the hotel, right? I was waiting for that one of course I remember from my later seasons of Angel. So good. I love episode 2. I think it was such a great way, because it happened in episode 2, right? I think that was the episode where we get to see the setting, and it's so fun because you spend the entire episode there. And technically, I mean, I kind of knew, I think, because I recognized it at some point in the episode, but you're not supposed to know that this is going to become an interesting setting. So it's so incredibly well thought out to give us the whole context and history for it. It's kind of like giving us a backstory of a character before we even meet them, because I think it makes things so much richer once you have a backstory for them, which is why I loved all the Angel flashbacks, which again is not something I thought I was going to say. I get shocked every single time, because I remember every time I saw Angel flashbacks when I was originally watching the show, I was like, and please don't hate me, I'd pull up my phone and I'd just like do something else, which is probably why I don't remember a lot of Angel. I might have been multitasking a little bit too much, and I'm the world's worst multitasker. But anyways, I now I want to go into flashbacks, but I was talking about settings. So I think the hotel was a great setting. Having the backstory for it made it feel even more meaningful. Knowing Angel had its past with it, and also it's just such a great place. It's big, it's spacious. There's something about it that feels so homey, because of course I really enjoyed the season 1 Office, but I think because I had seen the hotel throughout my seasons of Angel, that's the setting that I was like excited about. But still, I was able to create an emotional attachment to the season one office. I would say mostly because of I Will Remember You, just because I have the memory of the Shrek coming through the window and Buffy and Angel falling on top of each other and the clock. So those are the memories that I have with the season one office, to be honest. But I'm just very glad that we headed into this new space because I think it's just so good. And also we met a different environment, a different setting, Caritas, right? I wrote it down somewhere. I think it was Caritas. I'm probably saying this wrong, but it's fine. Lauren's bar, I think, is also another setting that I remembered, or at least I remembered Lauren, and I remembered him having a place. So this makes sense. It adds up. And I think it was so incredibly fun to have a place that's so safe, a place where you just absolutely feel like no wrong can happen. I wish places like this existed in real life, a place where you can feel absolutely safe from the world. I think that it really gets the feeling across, you know, a place where I don't know. It's just so idealistic. It's like a utopia. And I think they did it so well. So I really, really enjoy it. I'm kind of upset that, in the last episode, I think the car might have come in a little bit strong. So they might need some renovations. But, I hope that we get to see more and more of that setting because not just is it fun to see people doing freaking karaoke, but also it feels good to be in a place where you don't have to be worried, where you can just feel good. I think Caritas is probably one of the most, it's not that it's a happy, upbeat place, but it's just a place that really, to me, resonates with like calmness and like resting in a way. So I don't know. I really enjoy that setting. I think both of these settings were great additions. So we added the settings. I think I don't want to go into characters, but going into characters for a second, I think that another, because when I think of adding settings, I think of adding characters. I think Gunn was a great addition this season because, of course, we had met him in the last season, and just remembering off what happened in the finale, I think he was definitely not a part of the group as much yet. He was just, I think his first meeting with Cordy and West was like, him taking care of them at the hospital, right? On 122 or something. I feel like he didn't have that bond with them yet. And so I think this season, I would say, is when Gunn officially joins the gang. And I think that worked out really well. And I'm really excited that just like how Gunn started being presented in the end of the last season, we have our amazing, amazing, life-changing, perfect, wonderful, smart, kind, not scared of the world, Miss Fredikins. I adore her. I am so excited that she's joining the show. Of course, if you don't know yet, you should. She's the reason that I started watching the show. So I'm very excited that she's here. I think it's going to be good. And like, I just think so much of like for Cordy, I feel like I want them, but this is something that I definitely remember. I've always wanted them to be BFFs just because like, come on, it's only two girls in the whole squad. Of course they have to like bond and like, I feel like Cordelia just needs that female energy right now because she's surrounded by too many men. No offense, but just like, somebody that she can bond with in a different way. And I think that there was a part of me, even though I didn't really like, I don't want to say I didn't like Cordy when I watched it the first time, but I was just kind of like indifferent about her. I was just like, yeah, she's a character, sure. God, it feels horrible to say this, but it's true. I was not really paying attention to the show. You guys know this by now. Anyways, I was definitely hoping that, mostly for Fred, I was like, I want Fred to have a friend and I want it to be this chick. And I don't think we ever got to a point where I was like pleasantly surprised by their friendship. I feel like I don't know if they actually get to become friends or if they were just acquaintances, or maybe I was just like had unreal standards of wanting them to be best friends forever. But I think they definitely don't become BFFs. So it is going to be interesting to see, are they going to become friends? Are they mostly going to be acquaintances? Are they even going to get along very well? I don't remember them even having that much screen time together. So we will see, but I feel like Fred is going to be such a great addition to the show. I'm trying so hard to keep my conversation about her to like my character discussion, but I love Fred. Okay, anyways, talking about the end of the season, I was thinking back on the season 1 finale, which I think is still one of the best episodes we've seen of Angel. I think it's great. And I was thinking, wow, that ending, how could you ever beat that ending, with seeing Darla knowing she's coming back, setting up the new season. I was like, that was an insane ending that season 2 could never beat. And then I took a second and I was like, oh. And then I remembered how season 2 actually ended. And I was like, you know what? I take it back. They really raised the stakes in a way that I didn't think was possible, because I was like, what could be more shocking than having Darla come back? Yeah, Buffy being dead, I think, goes pretty high up on that list. So I think that they really do a great job at ending the finales. Not that Buffy doesn't, but I feel like Buffy kind of usually solves things a little bit, whereas I think Angel likes to leave things a little bit more open-ended, is what I feel like we've seen in the last 2 seasons. So good. Definitely feels like a setup, for what we can expect for the beginning of the next season, I hope. I don't know. So, yeah, just really good job with the finales. I think they both have really strong, and by both I mean seasons 1 and 2. Angel does finales really well. But I mean, so does Buffy. So talking about finales actually makes me want to talk about the first episode of the season. I also think Angel started off so well, because Judgment, I remember watching Judgment and being on a high. That was such a great episode. I would argue that season 2 started off stronger than season 5 of Buffy. I think this was one of my big criticisms when talking about season 5, probably my only criticism really, because that season was literally perfect, was that I was not a huge fan of Buffy versus Dracula. And I feel like I repeated that a billion times already, so everybody knows. But then when I compare it to Judgment, which was one of my favorite episodes, I was like, wow, season 2 started off so strong in a way that I didn't feel from season 5 of Buffy for some reason. So props to Judgment for being a fucking great episode. And then of course it just keeps getting better because of Darla. I mean, I love Darla so much. I literally do. And I thought it was so great to also, the fact that we were really exploring, like I said, so many relationships this season. And I like that we were talking about our, group nowadays. We were doing a lot of character exploration of Angel, Wes, Cordy, and Gunn's relationship and how that group forms. But I like that we were also talking about the past group that Angel was a part of, right? His, other crew of Spike, Drew, Darla, and Angel, and Angelus, I guess I should say. So it was really fun to get to see these comparisons of the different friend groups that Angel has been in throughout the years, how different they are, what they bring out in him. I know that they definitely bring out very different sides of him, one considering, but it does feel like they're completely different people though, because one of them was clearly with Angelus while the other one was with Angel. So I think that's also another interesting part of the flashbacks, is that how they're able to still make Angel feel like Angel even when he's a completely different character as Angelus. And I still have not forgotten in the episode Darla, probably because I was editing it last night, so it's fresh in my mind. But I do think it's quite fascinating how he still tries to go back to her even when he has his soul. Just the sheer level of desperation of wanting to not be alone, I think, is really sad to me, because I think Angel always feels like he's sort of cruising through life on his own. And I think to me that was a really big eye opener, in the sense of he really tries to connect to people, and then eventually outside circumstances make it so that he feels like he has to shut them out. How he fires the squad and those kind of things. He can't really count on people because of, I guess, his track record and history. I want to talk about some fun guest stars that we had this season, because I think we had a couple. I don't know if number 1 on my list should be the Master or it should be Faith. I mean, obviously I love Faith more because she is literally the best character to have ever existed. But at the same time, I feel like the Master came as such a shock to me. I never expected us to see the Master again, never in a million years. So seeing the Master, seeing Darla's origin story, absolutely great. So great. I love all the callbacks, to the Master. I like that we saw Anne. I was I could barely even remember her. And this is something that's so fun about the Buffyverse, and something that really, I feel like, makes it even more fun rewatching, is that there are kind of some minor characters that become more important the more that you watch it. And right now I'm actually thinking of Buffy itself, with Jonathan, because like I've been doing a Buffy rewatch, as I've been doing for a while already, but I go slowly. But anyways, I'm still in season 2. Sorry about that. But I have been noticing Jonathan in the background of episodes. Like I just watched like Bad Eggs like 2 days ago or something. And I was like, oh my god, that is Jonathan right there. And I've been noticing him in quite a few episodes. And maybe it's just because I have a really bad memory, but I had not made the connection. I mean, of course, I knew that Jonathan was a character that we had seen before, but I don't think he really stood out to me as like a character until Earshot. And that's like a whole season after, you know what I mean? So I think it's really fun to get to see a character like Anne, who's somebody that like we kind of might have forgotten already. To bring her back is such a nice payoff, you know, to bring back the master. And then of course Faith. I mean, could we bring Faith back into every single freaking episode? I beg of you, please. I just love her so much. I really hope. And I think this is another reason that I was expecting Faith to come back. Is that I remember her doing one guest appearance in Angel because I remember knowing her like face, but I know that she's not like a character that like sticks around. I know that she's not like a series regular or even a recurring. I think she was really just there that one time. And so I was kind of hoping that they were, I feel like all of my hopes and dreams about what I wanted Angel to accomplish, unfortunately, and maybe this is why season 2 could have hit me harder, but probably didn't, is fully my fault, because all of my hopes and expectations of everything they could have done in the whole show was put into season 2, because I was like, if I don't remember it, it means it has to have happened within these next 22 episodes. So I had all the expectations of the world in season 2. And that's not to say that I didn't like it, but I think that's the reason that I had a couple of disappointments here and there. That's why I feel like, overall, I feel like season 2 left me with a feeling of I wish it could have peaked a little bit higher, in the sense of I feel like when they reached Darla and Drew, that was a peak unlike anything we've ever seen, and I kind of wish we could have like stayed there a little bit longer, talked about that a little bit more. And of course I know that like shows are all about up and downs, you can't really like, that's just the way things are, but I just wish we could have stayed at that one specific high a little bit longer because I was enjoying it so much. But overall I really really like Wolfram and Hart being sort of like the heart and soul of the season, and to be honest, of Angel. I would say I think they really are that one. It's actually quite different from Buffy, because while Buffy has like very specific big bads of the season, I think Angel has a series long big bad, which is Wolfram and Hart. It's like this one thing that they're trying to defeat their whole lives and that they might not really be able to, because that's interesting. That's something that I actually don't remember from season 5. I don't remember if they're able to like beat season that Wolfram and Hart. Anyways, that is a really nice focus. I mean, I love seeing Lila Layla. I love seeing Lindsay. You know, I think they're great characters. And I think Wolfram and Hart is, as always, very fascinating. But then again, they were bringing up the point in Darla of like, oh, they brought her back sort of like just to be a distraction. They were kind of hinting towards that, you know, that like everything that was happening was like sort of going according to their plan. And again, that just made me wonder, like, what exactly is their plan? Can we know more? And I feel like we never actually got to know so much of why they were doing what they were doing. So I'm also curious about that. And I feel like because there's such a series long big bad, I think that a lot of things might become more clear as we keep watching, or maybe as I rewatch. I think this is also something that's so hard, is that I'm genuinely having a hard time remembering all the details of the first half of the season. Not the first half, even longer, just because it's been so long. I really forgot a lot of episodes, not like the episodes itself, but like the details of them. So I think that like once I actually sit down and rewatch the season, I might catch a lot of things that I'm missing right now. I might know. I think I definitely would. But yeah, I think those are basically my thoughts on season 2. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was really, you know, I think they did a great job of setting up the show and the relationships even better. And I'm definitely excited to see it keep growing, because I think that Angel still has so much potential. I think the episodes are just going to keep getting better and the seasons are just going to keep getting better. So I'm excited for that. We should head into character relationships, because we should head into character arcs. and then we're gonna head into character relationships, and then I'm gonna end the video because I'm already getting tired, guys. I woke up and I was like, I'm not gonna record this today. And then I was like, no, I actually will. I talked myself into recording this because I so desperately need to watch 301 next weekend. I was like, I will not postpone this. This cannot happen because I need to know what's happening with Buffy right now. And I just want to continue the show, both shows. So I'm doing this even though I'm absolutely exhausted, and I actually ended up spending the whole morning actually coming up with the notes, and so I ended up starting recording so much later, which is why this video probably sucks. But anyways, it's been done. Character arcs. I mean, we should definitely start talking about Angel. He's such an interesting character. I feel like he always has this like depressed part about him that I feel bad for him. I really do. He's always going through something. And like I said, I think this season was really, really interesting for him because I think it like showed a different side of him. And I want to say it showed that he can have more range than I would have anticipated. Because I feel like Angel is such a like savior where like I feel like that can sometimes make him seem like he can't be a flawed character. I mean, of course, Angelus, I'd say Angelus would be his big flaw, but I'd say that in general, because he's such a like savior and like the good guy, like the prince of the story, it's kind of like he can only be a good person who saves people and that's it. And I think that this episode went a little bit more into like, no, he can actually be a little bit human in the sense of he can have his flaws. He can like make mistakes and fire his crew. He can like distance himself from them because he's feeling, all these feelings. And I think that like seeing him kind of go into a little bit almost of a big bad territory even while having a soul, I thought was a very interesting arc for him because like I said, it made him feel very like I was doubtful of him. I wasn't sure if maybe he was going to do something that was going to push him over the edge and make him into a big bad. You know what I mean? Because I feel like he could still be a big bad with a soul, It would be really sad but interesting. And so I thought it was a very interesting choice for his character arc for the season. But overall, I think it was like worth it. I think the payoff of having him come back to the crew at the end sort of like makes it all worth it. It makes all the like doubting that I might have doubted him for a second, and it makes all the pain of having him go away from the crew, I think it all becomes worth it when he comes back to them in the end. Because I feel like there are some times where shows can try and do some things because that they're trying to reach a payoff, and then the payoff like doesn't work. It's like it was just not worth it. It's like you put me through some things that I don't think are worth it for the final outcome of what you want to make me feel. And I feel like this one was, because I think this one was beneficial in all ways. Even though it was hard to see them stay away, I think it made the group grow, and I think it made Angel grow. So it's like, I see what you're doing, Angel writers, and I really appreciate it, and I think it worked out really well. And I'd say that another important like side of Angel that we got to explore this season is that it seems like he is not reaching his full potential, like as in regards to like his power, it seems, because this is something that was brought up in 206, right? Guys will be guys. Did I nail that? I feel like I nailed that. No. That episode, I remember that the fake man told him something like that, like, why aren't you fighting harder? He's like, oh, I can't let the beast out, or something like that. Like, he needs to like get a grip so that he doesn't like lose control. And I feel like that parallels very well what happened in the finale, where he actually does lose control, in like the Pylea episodes. So I think it was in the finale. Maybe he did it in 221. I can't remember exactly, but I just know that like he definitely lost control and became this like actual beast. And so I thought it was interesting because even though he does become this like beast that he believes he can't control, he actually does. He's able to get a grip, when he's fighting with the Gruesov slug or something in, the last episode of the season. So it's interesting because maybe that's going to make him realize that like he doesn't need to restrict himself or pretend like he is not as strong as he actually is. Maybe he can do both. He can still embrace how strong he can be, while not leaning into Angelus and not being a bad person, just using it for the good. So we'll see. Not exactly sure how that could play off, but I do think it's quite interesting that we got to explore it. Um, we should also talk about Wes, because I think this was a really big season for Wes, like undoubtedly. I think he did so good. I would say that maybe he was the one who I felt like had the most character progress, maybe alongside with Angel, because I think Wes understood what it's like to like step up in a different way. Because I think we've always seen Wes as sort of like a klutz and somebody who, of course, is very capable, but who like lives under his father's shadow and clearly um like I said, I feel like the klutz thing sometimes can take away a little bit of like his fighting capabilities. He always felt like somebody who was very capable intellectually, but maybe not the best as like at actually fighting. Um, and so I thought it was interesting because I think this season really changed that around for him. I think it really showed what he could be like as a boss. I think he was doing a good job, but I think that there's such a distinction to seeing Wes be the one in charge versus Angel being the one in charge, because I feel like while being the boss comes naturally to Angel, giving out orders, he doesn't even need to think about it. He's just doing it. I think Wes needs to work for it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But you know how, like, for example, some people, I hated friends who could do this, didn't have to study for a test, they would just nail it, and then I would stay up all night studying for the test and I'd still get a lower grade than them. So I think it's just a matter of like this. It doesn't mean that I was not cut out for it. Well, maybe it did. But what I mean is that like it's not that he's less capable than Angel. On the contrary, sometimes he's working even harder than Angel to do it. But it's not something that I would say comes as naturally to him. But I do think he's really growing into it each time more. It was really great to see him be in like this position of more power. I think he was doing a great job like keeping people in check and seeing the full vision, because I think that's really hard sometimes. It's so easy to have like sort of a narrow point of view of like what you know and what you believe, and I think West does a really good job of seeing the full thing. He can really observe situations as a whole, and I think that's really, really helpful. So I think, a lot happened to him. We got to see him have some romance. We got to see him get shot. We got to see him be the boss. Like, he's really been through a lot this season, and I think it's only going to make him, like, stronger and more capable. And I think that he probably believes in himself a lot more after this season, and even though I feel like, obviously, Angel Investigations is going back to Angel, I think that Wes knows that if he wanted to, he could be in power. I think there's still something very meaningful to him, even if like it doesn't last forever. Him being in charge, I think it's definitely changed him, like forever. And I also think he dealt with things in a very calm manner. I think Wes was always calm. And I mean, not that Angel wasn't. They actually are both very calm. But it's interesting to see that they don't lose their shit. They always, like, even if they don't know what's happening or like they don't feel like they have control of the situation, you don't see them really like get desperate. I think they both deal with it in a very calm manner, which I think is quite interesting. Well, we should talk about my girl Cordy, because like when should we not talk about my girl Cordy? I mean, I love her. I feel like that's kind of like all I ever have to say about Cordelia, is that she's just simply the best. She's amazing. I do think we have been seeing the consequences of everything that happened in the finale. I think the finale was a big episode for all of them, man. And I think that, obviously everything that happened with the visions and seeing how much pain she was in, that really changed her. And I think that we're really seeing how much Cordelia is becoming more like empathetic. And I think she's really learning how to walk on other people's shoes a lot. I like that even when she's sort of given the opportunity to get rid of the visions, she could pass them along to Gru. And it would like, he would still be having the visions. So it's not like she would be completely neglecting them and she'd be like, oh, people would be dying because I wouldn't be using them. No, they would still be used. They'd just be saving other people. But I like that she was not willing to let go of that. It just feels like it's an important part of her. And I also like that, I think season 1 Cordy would have absolutely wanted to stay in Pylea. I mean, she was a queen. I don't think she would have wanted to leave. I think she would have been like, okay, so I'm at a place where everybody worships me. Okay, let's make sure I stay here. And so I actually kind of like that she wants to leave, that she doesn't want to stay there, you know what I mean? Because maybe she would want to stay in this like idealized society where everybody loves her. But she has things holding her back on Earth. You know, she has her people. And I also love how, by the way, all of them didn't even need to think about going to rescue her. The moment that she was like, the moment that she disappears, they're like, okay, so I guess we just have to go there. It doesn't matter the consequences. It doesn't matter if they can't come back. They were just so determined. Um, so I think Cordy has definitely been having some character progress, and as always, her humor really stands out to me. I think she's great. Every time she speaks, I would like to laugh in the best of ways, not like at her face, but with her. Cordy, I'm always laughing with you. I just such a good character and such character progress. I just love seeing how different she is from the character that we originally met. I maybe Faith might be the most different, even though Buffy has been changing a lot. But I was going to say, I think Cordy might be the character that is most different from the pilot's version of herself. But I don't want to say that for certain. I should think a little bit more about that. But I can say that she's definitely at least one of the most different from how we originally met her. And just like how her heart seems to be growing, I think she was also learning how to do different things. I think she was really proving herself in like a little bit of a research way. And I like how they're doing this to the whole squad. I think they're showing that each one of them have their strengths, and they're also showing them do other things that wouldn't be their strengths, you know, like Wes, and you get to see him like fight a little. And then I think of the opposite. I think of Gunn and getting to see him doing research and him being the big brains, which he absolutely was in a couple of episodes. And so, you know, Cordy, we got to also see her kick ass in like different ways. I think she did a great job researching. She did a great job undercover. So it's nice to see her like be able to explore the full range of things. On to Gunn. We have to talk about Gunn. I'm excited because this is the season that actually really feels like he is in. And I mean, I was already feeling it from the start because I knew that he was going to be in, so it was just a matter of waiting, and I was very excited. And I feel like now he's definitely part of the group. You know, I don't know if I want to say I like it because I think it's kind of sad that he had to make a choice in between like our group and like his past group. But I like that he made the choice to stick with us just because like it's good to have him around. I just wish he didn't have to make like what feels like such a permanent choice, you know. But it was interesting to see that we still can catch glimpses of Gunn's, I want to say like old life and all his roots and stuff like that. Because, you know, with Wes and with Cordy, we've already known them. We already know some bits of their past. We already have some of that exposition. You know, we know that Wes has a complicated relationship with his father. We know that what happened with Faith, I think, definitely affected him. With Cordelia, you know, we've been following her life since season 1, all her family drama, her parents losing their money, stuff like that. And then with Gunn, if we were simply presented to this character, I don't know if we would have been this attached if we didn't know a lot about his backstory. But, you know, we got to see him with his sister, and then now we get to see a little bit of like his life and what he has been, you know, doing, how he has been fighting the good fight for like a really long time already, just like in a different way with different people. And then now he actually, you know, gets to fight alongside a vampire, which is very funny and probably not where he thought his life was going to go. But do our lives ever go where we think they're going to go? They don't. So it's fun to get to see him really join the squad, and also fun that we got to see him in a different way. I think maybe because his name is Gunn, I feel like I already automatically and because he came in fighting so well, I already made the assumption that he was going to be another Angel, in the sense of like he's going to be the muscle of the equation. And of course I think he definitely is in a couple of ways, but because we've also seen Cordy and Wes defend themselves and be able to like kick some ass as well, and because we get to see Gunn doing a lot of research and like just generally saving their asses a couple of times just with the sheer power of his brain, I'm like, no, okay, I'm glad that we're not just keeping this character as like somebody who is a good fighter. I'm glad that he also gets to help them in different ways, because like I said, it's just good to have all these characters do everything. So I'm glad that they didn't lean into like the whole Gunn is just gonna be like a good fighter and that's sort of it for him. I like that they're giving complexities to each one of them and not just sticking them into like, oh, you're the research guy and you're the muscle guy and Cordelia's just like vision girl or whatever. They're all everything. So yeah, I think he really, really proved himself, and I think he also showed that he's quite a softie, and I like that for him because he seems like he's such a closed off person. I think he's somebody who has a hard time trusting people, or at least that's the vibe that I get from him. So it's good to see that not only is he a softie, but I think he knows that he's a softie. He just, like, he cares very deeply, and I think that's why he can sometimes come off as closed off in a similar way that Angel does. That's just because he probably doesn't want to get hurt again. Trauma. Okay, who else do we have in my list? Lauren. Yeah, let's talk about Lauren. Lauren is a very interesting character because, listen, I love him, and I knew from the moment that he showed up that I was going to love him because, like, I've seen episodes with him, and I was like, yeah, this is a nice green man. But he was a lot more complex than I would have assumed, because I thought that I was just going to love him and that he was going to be a good guy, and that's that. And that's not to say that he's not a good guy, but I think Lauren is a lot more open to bad guys than I would have expected, if that makes sense. Like, he is somebody who will absolutely see both sides. Like how I was saying that I think Wes really showed to have, like, a very big general vision of everything that's happening. I think Lauren has an even bigger vision. Like, Lauren has a 360 vision, you know what I mean? He can really see absolutely all sides of everything. I think that he's just a very understanding person, and I think that's interesting because it doesn't necessarily seem like he doesn't help the bad guys. Not to say that he does help them, but it's just so interesting to see that he doesn't seem to dismiss people as, like, you're a bad guy, you're not getting help, you're a good guy, you will be getting help. He kind of just seems to see things as a whole. And it's also quite interesting with Lauren getting to see that it's probably a really big struggle for him to live his life, in the sense of he knows a lot of things that are happening and probably can't share. I can't imagine that that's an easy burden to carry, sort of like knowing what you can and can't say, or like feeling things and like just like knowing where things are going at any given point. I feel like that's probably a really hard thing for Lord, but I think he carries it well. I think his power is so fascinating, getting to read people through song. That's so creative. And then the fact that he would do a karaoke bar, please. This is the smartest not man. I don't know what he is. Green man that we've ever seen in our lives. He is just a really, really fascinating character. And I think that he's really showing a different side of things to me, because I feel like I'm always such a bad is bad and good is good person. And I think he brings out a complexity that I wouldn't have expected. And I think it's not that it made me doubt him for a second, but I think it kind of did. It made me take a step back and be like, oh, are we sure that this guy is like actually a really good guy, or is he just like doing whatever he can to like benefit himself? But I think that with time, he's proven himself and he's shown that he cares. And he goes with us to Pylea, even though that was probably his biggest nightmare, and being in Pylea, we can sort of understand why. So I think he's really proven himself to our group. But he was a different character than what I anticipated. And somebody else who was also quite different than what I remembered was actually Fred, which is surprising, because if there's one character that I was paying attention to in this goddamn freaking show, it was Fred. Like, she was the only character, okay? No offense. I keep offending Angel viewers probably every time I talk about how I watched this show, because I barely watched it. But, I was definitely paying attention to Fred. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I have, like, the new version of her in my head or something, like the person she becomes. But right now, seeing her intro to the show has been very interesting, because she is a lot, like, I want to say, first of all, like weirder than I remembered. I think she's definitely struggling. She's like, she's been in this freaking crazy ass dimension for I don't know how long. So of course it's like a different experience to get to like interact with like actual humans and an angel, and just like, I know that it's a lot for her to handle. But also, I mean, I knew that she was smart, but seeing all those calculations and stuff like that, I was like, wow, she is mind-blowingly smart. And I think most of all, what stuck to me is that she is so freaking caring. She just met Angel and she was taking care of him. She was able to find ways to ground him and bring him back to Angel. She was like nursing him into health almost. And most of all, she didn't run away. I think that's what stuck to me the most, is that because she's so like awkward and quirky, I would have figured that the moment where anything went poorly, especially with how suckish her life is, the moment that Angel turned into whatever the hell he turned in at that dimension, I thought she was going to run the other direction, and that's that. You know, if it was me, that's what I would have done. And I like that she sticks around and she's not afraid. She doesn't seem to be afraid of anything, which in a way is very sad because it's like, wow, that means she's just seen everything to a point where she's just indifferent and she's just like, nothing can scare me because my life has already scared me enough, you know. But in other ways, it's just so interesting, like, for her to have a character that's so absolutely herself, you know, because she feels very different than the rest of the squad, and somebody who I think is going to definitely stir up some. I mean, I don't think she's going to stir anything up. Maybe that's not the word choice, but I think she's definitely going to shake up the dynamics of the group. So I'm really excited to see her fit in. I'm excited to see how much she's going to change getting back to Earth. I wonder if they're going to, like, leave Pylea Fred in Pylea, and right now she's going to become a different person, and maybe that's why Pylea Fred felt a little bit, like, different than what I thought. But honestly, she was even better than I imagined. So I'm really glad, you know, because within these, like, what we saw, like 3 episodes of Fred, 4 if you count the mini flashbacks, those were already enough to prove to me that Fred is going to be one of the best characters in the Buffyverse. Not that, like, I didn't come into this already knowing it, I totally did, but I'm glad because so many of my opinions have changed. You know, like I said, I'm so attached to Cordelia now that maybe with, like, how much I love other characters, because I genuinely do, I was like, maybe Fred is not going to rank this high anymore. But nope, she's going to do it, because with 4 episodes, she's already become one of my favorites. She's so good. Really excited to have her join our gang. We should talk about Darla. I mean, I love talking about Darla because I already said it. I think she's one of the best parts of season 2. I think she's one of the best parts of my life, if I'm being honest. She's so great. She's so, so great. And I love that this was a completely different side of Darla than we have ever explored. And not something that I expected, because I didn't expect her to come back as a human. You know, because the memory I had of Darla is Darla's a vampire. And so it never even occurred to me that, first of all, that she would have died. Second of all, that she would be coming back to life as a human. All very overwhelming, but I loved seeing that, like, character arc for her. I loved seeing her. I mean, I don't want to say that I loved seeing her desperation, because that feels really mean, but it was just really, it felt very deep and very hard, and, like, it was hard to watch, you know, seeing her having to deal with the fact that she's dying, having to deal with the idea of grief, which is not something she's had to deal with before, you know, and a concept that I feel like most people don't really get to explore as an adult, right? Because I think we're all, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't remember ever finding out that I'm going to die. I feel like it's just something that we don't necessarily learn as an adult. I think it's something that we kind of come to terms with when we're children. I think we understand that concept fairly early on in life. And I think that having Darla, of course she knows it rationally, but having to emotionally understand that she was going to die as an adult, I think makes her much more conscious about it, because it's not something that was true to her. It's something that, you know, she had found ways around. And so I think it definitely does shake things up to have her understand this, that this is happening to her now. And I liked seeing how much she changed, right? Because it seemed like Angel had been able to get through to her and make her understand the gift of life, and then having Drew take that all away from her is really, really sad, because it's like the Angel Darla connection was just so great. And I really genuinely think that if Darla had continued to be a human, I think she was just going to go on this really wonderful redemption arc where I could actually see her and Angel becoming friends again, you know, soul friends instead of, like, soulless lovers. But then now, obviously, that shook everything up, and I think that took her back. You know, it's like we were having all this character progress only for one little thing to set us back and make her into the big bad again, which I can't complain, though, because Darla as a big bad is literally the best. Darla as anything is the best, just Darla. I think we should include Darla in every show to have ever existed, and the shows are automatically going to be better because she is a queen. But overall, I do think that her entire storyline was a surprise to me, and it felt very like a very interesting choice to go down that route. And it was also really interesting to see how she really is a master manipulator, and gaslights Angel all the time. Like, she will really do whatever the hell she wants to do. But like I said, I don't care. She can literally do anything because she is Darla. I mean, we gotta talk about Drusilla for a second. It's really interesting. Like I said, since I'm rewatching season 2, I'm actually watching it with my roommates. And they both really dislike Drusilla. They don't get her appeal. They don't like her. And first of all, I didn't even think that was a possibility. I'm like, how? And then that made me take a step back and realize, wait, am I the weird one? Because I mean, I think Gollum was my favorite character in Lord of the Rings. I was like, am I just attracted to the weirdos? Is this what's happening? But I think Drew is just an amazing character. I don't think people should be legally allowed to disagree with me. I think this is a fact. I think this is like a law. I think Drusilla is one of the most interesting characters we've seen. I think she's unhinged. I think seeing her in like real time was really, really fun because we hadn't seen that for so long, right? I think since Becoming, right? When she leaves, when she kills Kendra and leaves, that was really upsetting. So it was really, really fun to have her back. Of course, her appearance on Buffy was also really fun, but I think that seeing her with Darla takes the cherry on top of like the most perfect thing ever, because it was just so great. And it hurts to see her like betray Darla, I want to say, and turn her back into a vampire. But like I said, I think they're the coolest duo, so I'll let it all go. But overall, any moment with Drusilla is a good moment. I just wish we had more moments with her. Who else did we see? Oh yeah. I did make a note. That's actually kind of interesting, Domi. I said, who connected her to Wolfram and Hart? That's a great question, Domi. Because, you know, they are the ones Lindsay brings her in to transform Darla. Lindsay, how did you get Drusilla's number? How did you convince her? How did you lure her to come back here? Was it just like, maybe he didn't need to convince her that much. I feel like she would probably want to come out of her own free will once she found out that Darla and Angel were both there. But I did think it was interesting that Wolfram and Hart was the one who brought her in, because I would not have expected her to, oops, sorry, almost fell. I'm okay. I wouldn't have expected her to know Wolfram and Hart. But anyways, we could move on. We gotta talk about Kate. Come on. I could talk about Kate for probably an entire video because I love Kate, and I think this was another one of those moments where I was like, I think they're gonna have to cram everything Kate into season 2 because I don't remember her in the later seasons. So anything that might happen with Kate is gonna have to happen in season 2. It happened to some extent. I think we saw Kate in a couple of episodes. I'd say it was pretty much what I expected, in the sense of I figured that she was going to be here once in a while, but I didn't think that she was going to be like a main character, a series regular, or anything, just because if they were to have done that, I feel like they would have already just done it. But I do think that any time with Kate is a good time. I like that we finally seem to explore a little bit of her grief, because, you know, I always praise Buffyverse for how well they do in not forgetting all of their characters' pasts and everything they put them through. And I feel like this to me had felt like a really big thing that happened to her that they were just not really talking about. So I really, really like that we were able to talk about that a little. But then I feel like we got into another really interesting conversation with Kate when, you know, she gets fired, and it seems like she was going down a really bad spiral in regards to like her mental health. And I figured that this was going to be a really, really interesting storyline for us to explore, and a really big way for her to connect with Angel, who I think also has some similar, you know, kind of like doomed feelings about life. You know, I think they had a wonderful conversation, and I feel like I wish that there was more about that, but I don't think we have seen Kate after that, did we? Because I feel like pretty much after that was already like the Lindsay episode and then Pylea, right? I don't think we got to see Kate after that. I'm really trying to remember. But my only wish for Kate is that I wish she had more screen time. And I wish we were talking about everything that she's dealing with. But, you know, I still have hope that we're going to see her in season 3. It's going to be really weird if we do, because I really do not remember her character. So that's going to feel kind of like off. But, you know, I don't care. As long as we get her, I'll just be happy. Yeah, I hope we get to talk about everything that happened in Epiphany, I think, right, is the episode. I hope we talk about that. I really, really wish that she would join our group, man. Especially now that she got fired. And, you know, this way we would also, like, have a really good like 3 men and 3 women, so it would feel very balanced. But I know Kate definitely does not join our group because I feel like I would probably remember if there was somebody else. But yeah, in general, I love Kate, and I feel like that would have been the perfect excuse for her to join us. But it's okay. Yeah, let's talk about Lindsay. I thought it was interesting. First of all, that he left because just no, come back right now. I just, nobody consulted me about this. I would have said absolutely not. I will not allow him to leave. Um, but I really, really think he's gonna come back because he felt like somebody who I think was familiar. So I have fair certainty that he's going to eventually come back. I hope he doesn't stay away for too long. I think he's a really, really interesting character, and I think I've talked about how I think I like him more than I like Lila Layla, and so I think it's gonna be hopefully a well-deserved break so that the actor can, I don't know, do some other cool stuff and have some fun. But then I hope that he eventually finds his way back to Angel because I really like the character. I mean, I like the actor too. I think he does a great job. But in general, I thought it was interesting that he also seemed to be quite in the dark about everything that Wolfram and Hart was doing. Because I would have, I guess, assumed that. I mean, in some ways, I think I definitely assumed, like, oh, he is the mastermind and he definitely is a bad person. But then, I think since Blind Dates, we're definitely shown different sides of him. And I think it actually makes sense that he's being kind of deceived by Wolfram and Hart when you think about it. They're not looping him into everything they're doing. And just, I think he kind of is a bad guy who's not exactly a conventional bad guy. Like, I think it's interesting in between Lila and I really would love to make sure that I know her name. Lila Layla. What sounds more right? I think it's Lila. Anyways, I like her dynamic with him because even though they're like fighting on the same side and they're big bads with the same sort of agenda, I don't think they really agree with each other. And that just reminds me of the dynamic of like, Darla and Drew and like Spike and Drew and Angel and Darla, you know what I mean? Like all those big bads were always like on the same page. And I think that these are two big bads who are absolutely not. I think they see things very differently, and I think they're generally different people because I think Lila has something a little bit darker about her. I don't think she is as nice. I think Lindsay has a lot of boundaries and he tries to make those boundaries like I think they're important to him and I think he works on them, whereas Lila, I think she's just like, no, I don't think she has them. I mean, she'll befriend a random girl because she has powers and stuff like that. So that's why I really, really want him back. I feel like he's the kind of villain who I'm like, I'm not sure you are a villain, man. Like, let's just talk it over, and I'm sure we can bring you to our side. I still blame Angel. I am so sorry, Angel, but I still blame him for being so unreceptive to Lindsay when he came over in Blind Dates. Because if he had been nice about it and had, like, open his arms for Lindsay, Lindsay would have not. He would have left Wolfram and Hart, and he would have been a good guy, okay? I really, really genuinely believe that. We could also talk about Virginia for a second because she was a character that we saw once, and I thought it was interesting that she was like, in a similar way, I feel like she's what she could have been what Fred is. A character who you meet because of like a monster of the week of sorts, but who ends up sticking around. Somebody you save, but goes beyond that. And I feel like in a way she is, because she's somebody that they saved in one episode and we actually got to see her for quite a couple, and she even formed a relationship with Wes and stuff. But I think that while Fred is sticking around Virginia, they didn't really give her much of a personality. I think that she was just there to be Wes's love interest, which in a way I appreciate because it was nice to know that, Wes was having a love interest, good for him. Good to know that he like wasn't just focused on work. It's good to know that he has a social life because we get to see Gunn hanging around with his friends, and we don't really get to see Cordy hanging out with anybody else, but I'm sure she tries. But then it's also good to know that Wes also has his own personal life, because I would figure that he doesn't really know that many people in LA, so it's kind of glad. I'm just glad to know that he's actually like has stuff to do, and is not just like thinking about work 24/7. So like, I don't know how I feel about her because I feel like I don't know her well enough to feel emotionally attached to the character. But she seems nice, I guess. I mean, she does have a really interesting and upsetting backstory. So I guess for her, it's just a matter of I wish she was a little bit more than a love interest. Because when a character is just a love interest, it's really hard for you to like feel attached to them if that's all they are in a show. And I think that's a little bit how I felt about Angel in some parts of Buffy, where I was like, I don't get to see you have a personality. I just get to see you make out with Buffy, and that's that. And I think I think Virginia was a little bit of that, and I wish we had explored more. Yeah, and the last character I wrote down was just Holland. I guess he's a creep. He's a total freaking creep. I guess he's showing that even more than Lila Layla, he has absolutely no boundaries, and the fact that he can like there's some really dark stuff happening, like dark magic or something to be able to get him to like come back when we thought he was dead and stuff like that. Like he clearly is a weird ass man who I believe we're still going to be seeing. And I feel like what makes him even creepier is that he's not a big bad who's like, you know, he's not a god, he's not a vampire, he's not a snake mayor. He's kind of like just a human who has some really, really bad morals. And I think that's what freaks me out about Wolfram and Hart is that like they're not supernatural, you know, people with no souls and tendencies to do bad things. They're just human who make really poor decisions and who don't care about other people. And that just feels a little bit too realistic, hits a little bit too close to home because humans are kind of fucked up. But anyways, to wrap up the character arcs, my award for untapped potential, as always, just characters that I feel like deserved better in this season. I want to say I think number one for the award of untapped potential goes to Faith. I think the fact that they showed her in episode 1 made me think like, ooh, we're going to be seeing her this season. This is going to be exciting. We're going to get to see her have a redemption arc. I was like super into it, and then we never actually went there. And then number 2, Kate, for obvious reasons of like, it's Kate, and I want to see more of Kate, and I want to see Kate dealing with all the stuff that's happening to Kate. So give me Kate, please. I beg of you. And then number 3, I actually put Cordy, because I feel like we got to see a lot of the characters have their... I mean, all of them grew, but I feel like Cordy might have been the one who I felt like... I mean, she was definitely distant in a couple of episodes, but also I feel like she's very unhappy professionally. Like, I know that she wants to be an actor, but I'm not sure if that's actually what she wants. Like, she didn't seem, you know, obviously I know that like within the film industry, I know that you have to start like, you know, you have to work things up. So I know that like your first jobs in the film industry are not supposed to be good. They're supposed to be like, you know, supposed to help you to get better jobs later on. So like I understand that she would have to do some acting jobs that she wouldn't really be a fan of, but that whole like, I think it was a commercial, right? That was just really uncomfortable, and she was definitely not having fun with that. So I just wonder if she's sort of like in the wrong path and like believes that she wants to be an actor, but I'm not sure if like that's actually what she would want to do. But just in general, I feel like Cordy felt a little bit like sad. So I kind of wish that we got to see a little bit more of her, just to get to see her explore different things in her life, maybe. And then I'm going to give a special mention to Virginia, because I feel like if she had been a little bit more than a love interest, I feel like I could have actually enjoyed her character a lot, because she seems like a really powerful, strong woman who has had to overcome a lot, and I always appreciate that. And in general, let's just talk about some character relationships so that we can wrap up this video. I obviously, it's interesting because like for character relationships when it comes to Buffy, I was doing them like by 2, like the duos. With Angel, I feel the need to talk about them as a group as well, like Angel plus the group, which he's usually a part of, but I feel like for this season a big part of it he wasn't. And like I said, it was interesting to see him drift away from them only to figure out that he actually needs them. So I thought that was really nice. I feel like it's worth bringing an emphasis to that, to the fact that Gunn, Cordy, and Wes actually feel like a really tight-knit group. And then of course when Angel joins them, him as well. But Well, I guess in a similar way that Xander, Buffy, and Willow feel like a really tight trio. And then, of course, there's Giles, who's like a part of it as well. Interesting. I'm trying to think if I actually agree with the connection that I'm making. I don't know if Angel would be the equivalent to Giles. I feel like he would actually be the Buffy of the group, like the main character, um, who is a little bit stronger than all the rest, but they're still equally a part of the group. So I don't know. Anyways, they're great. It was good to see them get closer and stronger together. One of the characters that I do want to make a really like a strong emphasis to is Angel and Cordy. Um, because I feel like their relationship is so freaking sweet, and I love seeing how much they're growing to care for each other more and more. And I think of like, I don't know why, but every time I think of Angel and Cordy, I think of the one scene where it's something in the trash. And I can barely remember it. I don't even know if it's season 1 or 2. But it's just something about like, I think Cordy is like hiding in a parking lot or something. Like he sees her in the trash. What was it? I don't remember. She thinks he's a bad guy. I don't know. But I feel like that was probably the first scene that I saw of both of them alone. And I remember when I watched it, I was like, that's so interesting. So this is where it all starts. Because they felt so distant. And even when Cordy joined Angel, I was like, I expected them to already be friends, and they were not. And I feel like it just all caught me very off guard. And so now actually getting to see that friendship develop, I feel like is even better. Because I was definitely confused when she joined Angel, because I was like, she barely knows the guy. But it's actually worth it because we actually get to see her getting to know the guy. So I really have been enjoying seeing their relationship grow for sure. I feel like there's just something about them. I think Cordy might have been the one who felt the most betrayed by Angel this season, when he leaves them. I think both her and Wes felt similarly. I think Gunn has a bit of a thicker skin. And I think maybe because he was the newest one to the group. I feel like he was feeling it, of course. But I think Cordy and Wes might have felt it a little bit more. I think even more Cordy. I think Cordy, and I just think of like, I know that I keep bringing back Darla, but again, this was the episode that I was just editing. But like the looks that she gives him, for example, when he says something about being alone and she says like, you're not alone. And they hold that look for a solid like minute. And I think that's very meaningful. So in general, I think they have a very special relationship, which would explain why she would feel the most betrayed over this. But overall, let's see. Yeah, I think Angel and Wes definitely do have a very interesting relationship. Like I said, I think Wes also tries to put on a tougher skin, where he tries not to show Angel that he is very hurt by everything that's happening, but I think he undoubtedly is. And Angel and Gunn, I love their scenes together. I feel like they didn't have as many scenes like just the two of them this season. Well, maybe they did, but I feel like last season most of what we got to see Gunn with was Angel, and so we really got a chance to explore that. Whereas I feel like this season they were trying to change that around a bit. I think they were trying to get Gunn to interact with more people, which I understand and I respect, and I think it is the right choice. But I also hope we can get to see a little bit more of some Gunn and Angel, because I think they're a really cool duo, and I think it's just such an unconventional duo that you would not have imagined, considering how we met Gunn and how anti-vampire he is, What else? Cordy and Gunn. Yeah, I loved how protective she was over him. She immediately, like, took him under her wings, I want to say. And, like, Cordelia, you're, like, the tiniest. Like, I love how she believes that she can protect him from all, like, the things in the world, when chances are I feel like Gunn would actually be the one to protect her. But I like how they can have this like cool dynamic of just like taking care of each other, and I feel like they had some fun banter. Not as good of a banter as Gunn and Wes though. I loved their banter. I feel like they were so funny. I loved seeing how they were like clashing a little, but in general I feel like they actually were getting along. They felt like they had sort of a sibling relationship where it's like you're annoying the living shit out of each other, but at the same time you love each other more than anything. So I felt a little bit of that with those two. Yeah, I do want to see them, just have more scenes together. In regards to Cordy and Wes, I think they were interesting. I think they definitely used this excuse of not having Angel to bond a little bit more to prove how they can be independent and self sufficient, and I think it worked. And yeah, I really want to be able to see a little bit more of that as well. I want to see more of every friendship because they're all so great. I mean, we have to talk about Angel and Darla. I mean, those two might be one of the best relationships of the season. Do I want to say that it's the best one? I think I might. I think I might. Because seeing Angel try and help Darla, even when she is sort of like his origin story, the reason for everything, you know what I mean? Um, is really, I want to say heartwarming. It's very sad though. I feel like it's a very full circle moment of like, you turned me, now I turned you. There was their relationship was just really interesting. I feel like I would understand if Angel held a lot of resentment, didn't want to help her, didn't even want to think about her. But the fact that there was still some level of like obsession, and I want to say, I think there was still some love there. Not love in the like romantic sense of like he wants to be with Darla, but I think there was definitely something about him that still felt strong things for her because they were together for so long. And you know what? Maybe that's true because he did have sex with her, right? Even though that felt like more like it was trying to spite the universe. I guess the good part of this season was also that we found out that I guess Angel can have sex, so good for him. It's incredibly devastating when you think about the fact that this means that Buffy has been the only one who's truly been able to make him happy and reach true happiness. That makes my Angel heart want to throw up a little, but other than that, it's a good discovery. It's definitely leading us closer to Connor, I feel. I'm not exactly sure how, because I mean she was already a vampire when they had sex, right? So Connor definitely has to be some mystical pregnancy, which I'm not sure Wolfram and Hart impregnates her. I don't know how they would even, I don't understand. Or would it be that because she was a human does not mean she can now be pregnant? But I feel like her body would change the moment that she became a vampire, right? Because then otherwise every vampire, since they had all been humans once, then they would all be able to get pregnant. Anyways, I'm not going to go down that spiral. All I know is that Angel and Darla were probably my favorite relationship of the season. I think there was so much complexities within them. I never knew where it was going. It's like, it felt like it was full of betrayals, but it also felt like all the history in between them made it so that they understood each other better than any other character would in that moment. And so I really think that's a relationship that was like worth focusing on. So I'm very glad that they did. And even just Angel being willing to die for her in the trial episode, they have that much history, where even when she's sort of the bad guy, he would still do anything for her. Angel is just like me, man. I would do anything for Darla too. I would do anything for all of those bad guys. They're all so good. Please, I would lay down my life for Faith. No questions asked. But anyways, what else? Who else did I write down in my list? And Angel and Lindsay, I feel like they're also another ones who have some of the best banter of the show, which is why I refuse to believe that Lindsay left for good. I know that he's got to come back, but they have a very cool relationship to observe. This reminds me of Lindsay and Darla though, because that was a weird romance to go. Like I think Lindsay actually kind of fell for her, and I'm like, sir, I mean, I get it, but like, come on, sir, like this is your job, like don't fall for your like part of your plan, you know what I mean? It's like he fell on his own trap. He like set up the mouse trap only to fucking step on it, is what it kind of feels like to me. But at the same time, can I blame him for falling in love with her when she's just Darla? I can't. I can never blame these characters. But that was weird because I feel like Darla, I don't think she felt anything for him, but I think she knew exactly how to manipulate him, and for him it was all about the romance. That was the way to get through. Whereas with Angel, I feel like it was more like in the mind games of like making him feel like he was going insane. So I like that Darla is sort of like very observant, can sort of like figure out how to get through to everyone, and in a way she even got through to the rest of the squad by like getting Angel away. It ended up fucking up the rest of the squad because they were having to deal with stuff on their own, and I feel like to them that did not seem like an ideal situation to be happening. But yeah, it was kind of weird. I feel like Darla really clouds Lindsay's judgment. I don't think he was making the sanest decisions, and I feel like it was probably because he was into her, and that changes things for him. Overall, oh, I was talking about Angel and Lindsay. Yeah, please do become BFFs. I made a note about that. I would like that to happen. Angel and Lauren. I like how Lauren has already started being protective over Angel, even though they just met. It feels like he actually has been really trying to help him out and help out the group. So I'm excited to see Lauren create all these different friendships. It does feel like in a similar way that, like I said, Angel is usually the one to bond with the new characters to bring them into the group, like he did with Gunn, like how he did with Fred. And I think in a similar way how he's doing with Lauren. I think that he's the one who's closest to Lauren, but I think that slowly they're all becoming close to Lauren. You know, like how we get to see Cordy grieve Lauren when she thinks that they lost him and stuff like that. So it's fun because we're actually getting to explore all these different dynamics instead of just Lauren and Angel, which I appreciate. What else? For Angel and Kate, I only made the note, please give me something, anything at all. And I think that sums it up pretty well. I don't care what you want to give me for Angel and Kate, just like give it to me. Even if it's them fighting it, I will still take it. I would just like to see scenes of them together. I think they have really good chemistry. Not gonna lie. I think they just like they bring out an interesting side of each other. I think I always enjoy when they're honest and vulnerable with each other. I think that Kate knows Angel better than most people in this world. I think she's aware of all his past, which I understand can make her be hesitant towards him, but at the same time I still think she trusts him. So that's an interesting combo. And overall, I just want more of it. I don't care what they gave me. I need more. What else? Fred and Angel. Yeah, I mean, they had an instant bond, which I thought was very, very nice. And you can definitely see that it's a setup for her joining the show. I mean, maybe not definitely, but for me, yeah, I can definitely see it because I know it's the truth and I'm like excited for it. But overall, they definitely had a bigger connection than I thought they would. I expected not Cordy, not Wes, what's her name? Fred. I expected Fred to sort of just like come with them just cuz, but it kind of felt like a little bit more meaningful than that, because it did feel kind of confusing to me of like, why would she be hanging around with them at the hotel? It felt like it was going to be a little bit more like, oh, they brought her back, now she can just go back to her family. And I do remember something about her having to make that choice, like her family asking her if she wanted to go back or something, and her asking if she could stay. I remember something like that, but it's interesting to me that that wouldn't happen as soon as she gets back. It's interesting that she would want to, I guess, maybe possibly stick around with them. So that's what I'm interested to see. And I feel like it makes sense, though, because she did make a bond with Angel, whereas if they had just sort of found her and been like, hey, want to come along, then it would make sense that she would get to Earth and go her own way. But now a bond has been formed, so that was fun. Darla and Drew, I mean, they're the best. I want to see them literally be the queens of the world. I want to see them rule the world. I think that they are fantastic. I think their dynamic is literally the best. I would say that they're probably the best relationship alongside with Angel and Darla. Because again, I feel like the history just brings out these things in these characters where like you can sense all that like history in between them, everything that has happened and how that's made them closer. And how that brings so much things that are like unsaid in between them. I just love them. I thought it was such a smart move to have both of them be together, big batting it up for this season. I think it was really great. What else? Lindsay and Layla. Yeah, I mean, I talked about it. I just thought it was interesting that they both seem to be on the same side, except they're not. They really see things very differently. I'm not sure they're fighting the same fight. I'm not sure they have the same ideals. So that's pretty interesting considering they're working for the same company and technically trying to accomplish similar goals. And the last one that I wrote was Virginia and Wes. Yeah, I feel like maybe one of the other reasons that I wasn't necessarily vibing so much with Virginia is that I feel like it was less about love and more about like power dynamics. It just felt like she was in love with the version of Wes that saved her. And I'm sure things might have changed, of course, because she actually got to know Wes for being Wes. But there's just something about the way that they met and him being the knight in shining armor that just doesn't sit 100% right with me. And maybe if we had explored more of that relationship, I would have felt differently. And then now, to wrap up the video, I'm done with my character relationships. I want to talk about my overall wishes for the next season. When it was actually this morning, I decided I'm not exactly going to do season 3 predictions because it doesn't make sense because I've actually seen season 3. So, my predictions will probably be spoilery. I don't exactly want to sit down and try and think what could have happened in season 3 because, like I said, I feel like the more I think about it, the more I might actually remember it, and I feel like I'm actually purposely trying to forget Angel, you know. Instead of that, I'm just gonna stick to like some overall wishes of like things that I would like to happen in season 3 that kind of might. So it's not exactly predictions. I would say my biggest prediction though going into that, now that we were talking about it, I think the season 5 big bad is Wolfram and Hart. I think I remember something about that. I remember there was a switch there. And for season 4, I would say that's probably the whole Gina thing, which I thought was connected to Connor. But maybe, I'm kind of thinking maybe Connor is season 3. Because if he's not, then I don't know what the season 3 big bad is. I could be forgetting one of them. But then at the same time, it feels like it's a 2-season story arc for Connor / Gina. I don't remember Gina's name in the show. I don't know if she has a name. I just remember it was weird. So maybe it's Connor. Maybe there is no big bad, because that's also something that I think season 1 and 2 of Angel showed to me, is that they have very unconventional, like, not really have a big bad. So I don't know, but I'm guessing maybe Connor. Maybe I got the timing wrong, because it does feel like for example, the whole Buffy thing that we were talking about, I definitely thought that was later, Buffy dying. So I think I am not confident that I understand the timing of the show. Not understand, remember. So maybe Connor will be the season 3 sort of overarching arc. So I'm curious to see how I'm going to feel about that, because I had, let's say, strong feelings when watching it originally. It felt really weird, but of course I'm going to wait until things happen so that we can talk about them then. Also because I want to watch them, that's going to remind me. Yeah. So that. Anyways, my overall wishes for the next season is that I want us to get Faith back. I need to have at least, like, the bare minimum is having Angel go in and see her in jail again, just because I miss her and I think she's amazing. And maybe they could use her help to bring back Buffy. Maybe they need another Slayer to, like, help guide them through where Buffy is, to go and grab her, snatch her right up and bring her back. I don't know, just like find a way to get Faith back into the show, please. Other than that, I want Kate to become more important, which, like I said, I have my doubts about her, like about this happening, because I don't really remember her being in the show when I watched it originally, so we'll see. But I would love to have more Kate. I would love to have Cordy and Fred become BFFs, but like I talked about, that's also something that I have my doubts about. But again, I would love it. And I would love Cordy to be happy. Honestly, all these characters, I feel like they're all so sad, nostalgic, sometimes living in the past and living in other... I don't know, it's not that they don't live in the present though. But I feel like they are very nostalgic, melancholic characters about everything that has happened in their lives. Obviously, they've all had a little bit of some rough things happen to them. So I kind of just want to see them be a little bit happier. You know, especially now that Buffy is apparently the sad show, then we gotta make these Angel characters have some serotonin. Because I just want to see them thrive. What else? I want more of Darla and Drew stirring shit up. So true. They're just so great. They're so great that I hope that this wasn't the last that we've seen of them. And I think that they really do fit the Angel vibe a lot more than the Buffy vibe. So I think if they were to come back, I hope that it's on Angel. I think it makes sense with the tone of the show. It worked out really well. I said maybe a more concrete big bad, which I guess would make sense with... No, because Connor wasn't really... No. Connor is season 4. He has to be. He has to be. He has to be. Oh, but then was there like, it was some sort of prophecy or something, right? That I think Angel like kills him or like throws him somewhere, right? And the end of the season. And then I guess he would come back in like 401 maybe. And then he's the grown up Connor. It was something like that, right? Because I remember Angel got rid of the baby. Baby come back. And he was a little bit, pissed off, I guess. Okay. So I guess our season 3 big bad is actually not Connor. That doesn't make sense. The timing doesn't add up. Which does make more sense because then that means that Gina and Connor are in the same season, which I thought they were. It just feels like their stories are connected. So this means that our big bad is going to have to be whatever makes Angel try and kill Connor. Which means Darla would get pregnant this season. I think so. Okay. Okay, yeah, I do think Darla gets pregnant this season then. And then I think it was something about a prophecy, right? Is it a prophecy that he kills his firstborn or something like that? I think it's something like that. Okay, very interesting. So anyways, it does feel like we're going to have a little bit more of a concrete big bad. So I guess my wish is going to come true, I think. What else? I wrote more crossovers with Buffy, but I actually might disagree. I wrote this literally mere hours ago before I started this video, and I might already disagree with myself. A part of me wants the crossovers because they're so fun, but another part of me understands that these shows should be established as their own shows. So I don't know. I feel like I'd be okay with either, but I do definitely enjoy some crossovers here and there. So I would not be opposed if they decided to do a couple. And then I wrote bring back Harriet. I think that's Doyle's ex, right? Just because for some reason I was going through my season 1 notes, and she was such a great character that I really wish we saw more. She knew so much about demons, and I just can't stop thinking about how great of an addition she would be. She's a side character that I really, really vibed with. So I guess I would love to see her again. And then my last bullet point was, are we going to be seeing a darker side of Wes coming? Because I remember talking about in my season 2 finale how Wes, he was kind of like in a mode of like, oh, we'll lose some people if we have to, as long as we accomplish our final goal. And he just felt a little bit dark in a similar way that Giles did in the season 5 finale. So I guess I was just wondering if if Wes is going to go down a little bit of a not big bad route, of course, but like a little bit of a darker route. Is he going to be making some choices that maybe I'm not necessarily going to agree with? I don't know. It could be. But yeah, I guess those are my overall wishes. Like I said, not really going to go into predictions. I think my prediction was sort of what we talked about. I think something about a prophecy. And I think Connor, I think the later end of the season is going to be Darla getting pregnant and dealing with that. The first part of the season, that I don't know. That we're gonna have to watch and see. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here, watching another season of Angel with me. I hope you guys have fun, had fun watching this season with me. I know that I definitely did. It was such a great season. We have such great characters in this show, and we have so much potential to like keep improving and keep growing. Just like, it feels like it's gonna get better and better, and I'm just really excited for that. And super excited to get to have a season with Fred. So excited that we have her now. It's very gratifying, and overall, I can't believe I'm finally done with the wrap-ups. I'm going to be counting down the days until I can watch 301. I'm genuinely very excited. So I think that should be the next video up on my channel, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I'll be anxiously awaiting the moment where I can watch it. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching my videos. As always, stuck around for this. Really appreciate it. And yeah, sending big hugs to everybody, and I will see you guys in 301 coming very soon. I hope. Very soon. I'm excited. See ya!